Eli screams and hits his head. His mother sits with him and reads a story to calm him down. So we have our A, antecedent. Every time he hears his mom say bedtime. The behavior, he screams and hits his head. The consequence, what happens after, his mother sits down with him and reads a story. It may very well be that he's going to continue to hit his, scream and hit his head because he likes to hear that story. Students are listening to the group Twisted Sister on the radio. Franklin starts to cry. The teacher makes the students turn off the radio. Students are first listening to the group Twisted Sister on the radio. Franklin has the behavior of crying. What does the teacher do? Has them turn off the radio. We have our A, B, and C, a unit of analysis. I want you to take a look at some of these and try your hand at them. In the following scenarios, practice identifying the antecedents, the behavior, and the consequences. I want you to remember that there may not be explicitly stated antecedents or consequences, but they're implied, so take a look. Pigeons have been trained to peck a key to get food, but only when the green light is on. The green light comes on and the pigeon pecks the key. An instant later, food is dispensed into a feeding trough. So you have your classic Skinner pigeon activity, which you just saw. So let's see, what would be the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence? Second one. It's Monday morning at school. The bell rings to indicate the first period has started. The students in room 100 continue to talk to each other and wander around the room. Mr. Smith, who's all ready to start his lesson, bangs a book on his desk and hollers, "Get seated!" Antecedent, behavior, and consequence. Number 3. Every Thursday, Allie's favorite TV show's on. This Thursday, Allie is hard at work studying and she loses track of time. She looks up and notices that the clock in her bedroom reads 8:03. She quickly runs to the living room and turns on the TV. This gets a little difficult. Antecedent, behavior, and consequence. Number 4. Billy is playing his favorite video game when his mom tells him it's time for bed. Billy has a tantrum because he wants to finish his game first. Billy's mom immediately turns off the game and tells Billy he's lost his video games for 1 week. Antecedent, behavior, and consequence. Okay, so sometimes those can be tough. In this activity, I'm going to give you some answers so you can make sure you get practice on antecedent, behavior, and consequence. In our first question, we had the pigeons. Our antecedent was the green light coming on. Behavior, the pigeon pecks. Consequence, he gets his food. In number 2, with the students, the antecedent is the bell ringing. Behavior, the students still talk and wonder. The consequence, Mr. Smith, the teacher, bangs his book and hollers. The third one, we have Allie and her television program. The antecedent, she looks at the clock. The behavior, she runs into the living room and turns on the TV. What's the consequence of that? She gets to watch her TV program. And then we've got Billy and our video games, and that can be a tough one. The antecedent is his mom tells him to turn off the game. The behavior, he has his tantrum. Consequence, he loses his video games for 1 week. So we're looking at the A, the B, and C. That's the analysis, the component that we look at in operant learning. We've talked about our C, the consequences. These are events that follow the occurrence of a behavior and they affect the future probability that that behavior is going to occur again. So let's look at that again. Events that follow a behavior and increase the likelihood that that behavior will occur again. Right? So we're applying something that will make sure that the student displays the behavior again. Consequences are what allow us to change behavior. Very important in operant learning. We can either increase or decrease it. Term that is critical to understanding this is that of contingencies. This is the relationship between the behavior and its antecedent or the consequences. And you've probably heard this before. If X occurs, then Y will occur. Or if you do behavior X, then consequence Y will occur. If it starts raining, then you're going to have to go inside. Or if you do your homework, I'll allow you to watch TV. Those are contingencies. An if and then. Teachers and parents and pretty universally contingencies are effective for all of us. If I don't go and teach my classes, I will be fired. So I have to do something. My behavior is contingent. My behavior of staying on my job is contingent on me teaching my classes. It's an if-then. Here are some common ones. Eat your peas and you'll get your ice cream. Very common with parents. Do it all of the time. If you eat something you don't like, you'll get your ice cream. I give you boys $5 each if you help me unload the truck. If you don't smile when looking into the camera, don't expect a decent looking passport photo. So those are some contingencies. If then. Now, reinforcement was something that increased the likelihood that a behavior would occur. There is positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. And those have very, counterintuitive thinking related to them. But what's key to remember is that they are technical definitions. So really what we're looking at is the adding or the subtracting. Now let's take a look. With positive reinforcement, we're adding a stimulus contingent on a particular behavior that increases the probability that the behavior is going to occur. So we've added something and it's increased behavior. Examples of that. Susie says please and thank you when asking for a toy. She gets the toy. In the future, she says please and thank you more often. So she gets something more and she does it more frequently. After eating all of his vegetables, Billy gets an ice cream sandwich. In the future, Billy eats his vegetables more often. In converse of this, we can have negative reinforcement. Now, it's not as it sounds, it is the taking away. Taking away a stimulus contingent upon a behavior that increases the probability. So we have taking away something that increases behavior. We had before with positive reinforcement, adding to increase. With negative, we have taking away to increase. This is sometimes called escape or avoidance behavior. You and I probably have some avoidance or escape behavior. I certainly know my children do. They try to get out of a task. So if I put my child in timeout and they really like timeout, they're going to do a behavior more and more and more because it means that they don't have to do the dishes. They sit on the stairs. That's better to them than doing the dishes. So you try to avoid allowing people to escape. Some examples of negative reinforcement. The teacher gives Jill a math worksheet. Jill screams and hits herself. The teacher backs off and she doesn't give Jill the math worksheet. Well, don't want to get into this. In the future, Jill screams and hits herself more frequently when she's given a math worksheet. She's been allowed to escape. All right? Something has been taken away, her math, but it's increased her behavior. George is teasing Mike. Mike punches George. Then George stops teasing Mike. In the future, when George is teasing Mike, Mike punches him more frequently. So someone's done a behavior, taken away a behavior that's increased the likelihood that it will continue, or increase, excuse me. All right, so we have examples of negative reinforcement. It's not as negative as it sounds. It doesn't deal with the outcome, but it deals, no, I'm not going to say that again. It always deals with the effect it has on behavior. But we're looking at whether something is added, positive, or taken away, negative. Here's a figure that gives you an idea or a good way to remember reinforcement. looking at this side here on the left, response frequency increases. So reinforcement always depends on the effect it has on behavior. If it increases, you've got reinforcement. Adding it, positive. Removing it, negative. All right, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. There are lots of behaviors that we're going to want to change. Lots of behaviors that parents want to change, that teachers want to change. But I want you to remember that in order to change a behavior, either increasing or decreasing, you need to use reinforcers, something that motivates the student to do it. Otherwise, they're not going to change the behavior. What exactly is a reinforcer? This is something that's added again or withdrawn contingent upon a particular behavior. So we only give it when we see something, and it increases the frequency with which that behavior will occur. Reinforcer. From those positive reinforcement scenarios that we looked at, the toy was positive, something added, the ice cream sandwich. From the negative reinforcement scenarios, our reinforcers were removing the math worksheet, negative, and withdrawing the teasing, negative. You can see how that is the technical terminology associated with that. If we look at categories of reinforcers, there are a variety of them. Tangibles, things that you can get, hold, have, see. Toys, movies, books, money, token, those are tangibles. Edibles, food or drinks. Social, things like attention, praise, activities, eye contact, pat on the back. Sensory, like tactile or vestibular or visual, getting to move, to spin. Escape or avoidance, terminating or avoiding something unpleasant. My daughter, in this case, will be our example of escape. I have been getting, for quite some time, calls to the nurse, from the nurse's station, that something was wrong with Emma. And I finally asked the nurse, does this happen at a particular time of day? She said, well, yes, it does. It happens to occur when they're due at around 2 o'clock. I thought, okay. I asked her teacher, what's going on at 2 o'clock? It happened to be an activity that Emma did not like. So she was escaping that activity by going to the nurse's station. She was getting lots of attention. The nurse trying to figure out what was wrong, talking with Emma, calling me. So she got lots of attention for that. But she was allowed to escape something she didn't want. That was reinforcing. It increased the likelihood that she would go to that nurse's station. Finally, we stopped that. Unless there's advanced bleeding, I don't want to be called. Types of reinforcers are primary, secondary, and generalized. Primary reinforcers are stimuli that function without having any past history or learning. So this is pretty universal across members of a species. Like we find as Homo sapiens, food, water, sexual stimulation, and sensory stimulation to be primary. That means most everybody has those same reaction, increases the likelihood of something occurring, but it doesn't have to be learned. We need food, we need water. The jury's out on sexual stimulation, but we'll leave that one alone. So those are considered primary reinforcers. Secondary, these are stimuli that